Hi guys, welcome back to the shack. I got an update. I got some news. Some of you may have saw this coming. Others may be surprised by it. But after almost 14 months of service, I am retiring this guy. Okay. From now on, this machine is going to be held over on the wall for those little odd jobs that I may have come in, but it has now been replaced and will no longer be doing stove covers for me. I created the new jig kit for my Aitzer and put it to work tonight on a job, and things went exceptionally well. So stick around for a few minutes and I'm gonna go over some developments and some of the upgrades and things that I've got coming for the Aitzer. All right, guys, I'm not going to bash my old machine. That machine has served me well. That was my original X-Tool D1 that I purchased right after they first came out. I've had it in service for over a year and a half. It has done countless jobs. The thing was responsible for helping me get my laser engraving business started. So no hard feelings with the X-Tool D1. It still works. It's just in recent times, my workload has increased. Therefore, in order to maintain the amount of profit that I would like to maintain, my machine's got to be faster, and the new Aitzer P20 is now my new go-to for pretty much anything. I have ordered the expansion kit for it to extend the legs and make it 850 by 430, and I've also got my enclosure partially designed. And just so you get an idea, guys, see all those stove covers over there? I engraved all of those today since I got home. And what was taking me about 40 minutes with the 10 watt, and I know I could have done it faster with the 20. I'm not knocking it. I've still got my 20 watt Pro. It's still going to be doing some cutting for me on some smaller jobs and stuff because the work area is limited to the 430 by 400. So that machine's not going anywhere yet. Now, if something stronger shows up, it may, because my Aitzer, the 24 watt Aitzer is cutting, everything I cut is cutting it faster with fewer passes. So it's going to be my heavy hitter, and I'm going to take the X-Tool Pro, and it's going to go take the spot of being my secondary machine for now once I get this enclosure up and going. But I'm having to redo some things, and I got to build the enclosure. But first, I got to get all these stove covers caught up and get them out of here so that my customers are happy. Then I'm going to start working on the enclosure. But that was, like I said, those burns are now 20 minutes. And that's about roughly a 13-inch circle with a reef and text in the middle. And I've got my burn time down to 20 minutes with the Aitzer on those pine panels. I'm running 90 millimeters a second, 100% output. And I've got the graphic broke up into sectors so that it doesn't have a whole lot of white space. And that's because I use that graphic a lot, and I do a lot of those stove covers. So I spend a little extra time with the graphic, because if I'm going to use that same graphic 300, 400 times a year, then, if I can shave 5 minutes off of it, at the end of the year, that adds up to a lot of time. So if you're going to be using the graphic over and over and over, you may want to look into breaking it into sectors and cutting out the white space. It makes them go a lot faster. And so that's enough about that. But I want to show you guys, my parts finally came in. I had an idea, and it looks like it is going to work. I've just got to get the enclosure built to put this thing in, but I want to share you with what I'm going to be doing with the Aitzer. So the biggest upgrade to my Aitzer was the jig that I made. This is the one I use for my stove covers. And the way this works is basically it just slides over the stove cover. I use that little reference right there to hook over the top left corner of the material, clamp this to the panel for the stove cover, set the machine inside there, just like I did with the other machine with the X-Tool. But like I said, this is a lot bigger machine, a lot faster, and a lot stronger. So it's made a lot quicker work out of it. But anyway, this is what everybody's been asking me about. When I build my big enclosure, this is the honeycomb from Nivel that I've had for a while. I use it for testing primarily because it's so big it wouldn't fit in any of my enclosures. But now that I'm fixing to expand the enclosure and put it in a probably a 4-foot long enclosure, I will actually have room to house this. But that's not the great part. The great part is, guys, is my next enclosure that I build will be, it will bring me closer and closer to having a setup similar to that of some of your bigger commercial CO2s, in that the bed does this. All right, so that is going to be awesome. This is going to be mounted in the bottom of my enclosure. I will be continuing with the downdraft setup for my air. The mechanics that raises and lowers the bed is going to take up 2 or 3 inches, so I'm going to use that as an air gap to allow for the air to be pulled through the honeycomb down and then out through the vent. I was a little concerned because this platform, I didn't know how sturdy it was going to be as far as with this large of a honeycomb, but I didn't want to spend any more money. I didn't need a lot of lifting capacity. Although this thing is pretty strong, I felt like this was adequate. So the good news is it looks as if everything is going to work exactly as I wanted, and I'm going to be really happy when I get this thing built. I'm going to put some rubber stoppers to stop it from going all the way down, because that last inch or so, it does kind of try to fall. So I may try to put some, either put me some rubber stoppers to just kind of catch it on the way down, or maybe put them into the scissors. But it's got that little bit of drop right there. Not a big deal. The machine's not going to be on this. My machine is going to be mounted up high. Basically, the way I've got my enclosure designed, and most of this is in my head for now, guys, but the laser itself is going to be mounted so that when this is fully lifted, the laser will be able to go all the way down to the thinnest of materials, or go all the way up to allow extra lift. So my laser itself is going to be probably around this high. And then if I have any large objects to put in there, I can just drop it all the way to the bottom. The only thing that I'm a little concerned about is using my jig kit. I'm going to have to make sure that there's not a lot of play in this from top to bottom. But as long as I can keep everything going straight up and down, shouldn't be an issue. Like I said, the only time I would ever use it with it lowered would be if I had something larger than what is, you know, able to fit. If I'm doing tumblers or whatnot, that would be another situation. So let me move the camera a little bit and give you a little bit better view of how far this thing goes up and down here. All right, so the cool thing is I'm not real crazy about the USB ports, but I'll also be able to charge my phone off of the controls for it. I do plan to either engrave or paint, make stickers for these, which I'm going to orient it to where up is, you know, appropriately in the right direction. But the blue lighting, I do like. USBs, but I'm going to probably leave it as is. But it does have very sensitive adjustments in the upper reaches, which, like I said, guys, that's typically where I'm going to be using it at. I don't expect I'm going to come all the way down with it, and I will come up with a way to keep that sudden drop right there at the bottom. I will fix a way to keep that from happening. But let me just show you the range of adjustment that this is going to give me. So right here, if I could get that turned sideways where you can see it, right there is about 4 inches off of the bottom. So in the event that I put it in the bottom of the enclosure, I should be roughly, once I add an airspace and stuff, a little higher. But the lowest I'll be able to go, I'm going to say, is probably going to be 4.5 inches by the time I add a 1/4 inch air gap. So you can raise this thing from 4.5 inches, and I can raise the work bed all the way up to roughly 13.25 inches. So I'm getting, you know, that's going to give me plenty of room for doing most jobs. Anything that is too large to fit inside there, I will, of course, have to, you know, set up the sawhorses and break out the sawhorse jig. But for the most of the stuff that I do, whether it be a tumbler, a jewelry box, stuff like that, ammo cans, most of that stuff will fit in that area that I'm gonna be allowed. So, like I said, I'm gonna do something about that last inch or two. I'm gonna put some rubber bumpers or something down to prevent that. But there you go, guys. And just to show you, I'm going to show you that this thing is it's no slouch as far as being able to lift. Let me grab my weights. These are my solid iron weights. These were actually counterweights out of little sign pedestals that I use for, you know, flattening things out and weight and stuff while the glue dries. They're probably, I'm going to say they're at least probably 8 pounds a piece, if I were guessing. So I'm going to place those on the honeycomb and operate it. It's actually a little smoother when it has weight on it. The more weight, the smoother it runs. You still have that little bump at the bottom. But like I said, I will be fixing that. But there you go. Up and down. And keep in mind too, guys, the honeycomb currently is just sitting on top of that thing. Nothing is fastened, nothing is attached. So, but it's actually balancing pretty well, just sitting up there. It does have pre-drilled holes for attaching. I'm probably going to reinforce this below here a little bit just to give it a little more rigidity. But so far, I'm not seeing a whole lot of sag in the honeycomb. There will be spacers periodically between it and whatever I put underneath here to maintain a flat surface. So just thought I'd share that with you guys. Pretty excited. All right, guys, until I can get the enclosure built, for now, I'm just letting the acer hang out over here on my empty space. This is where I normally do my stove cover engraves. The enclosure that I'm going to replace this one with is going to be coming down to probably about 4 foot. So that's going to put me from here to about right here. So this enclosure that's going to house this guy, once I get it expanded, I suspect I'm going to want to make it 4 foot wide. And reason being is that's going to give me a little extra room beside the machine for cables to kind of naturally do what they want to do. I will be adding the air assist and everything, just like I have this one. I'm going to be using the same Hanuguan fan that I have here. I'm just going to have to duck it a little bit differently to keep from having to bore another hole through the wall here, because I don't really want to. It's going to be basically the fan's going to end up being in the top back corner of the enclosure the way it's looking as far as the exhaust port. So I've got to figure out how I'm going to work that, or if I'm just going to patch that hole and do another one. But we'll figure that out once I get it over here. The machine will be kind of high. So this is going to be a rather tall enclosure that I'm going to build, because I want the machine's going to be at the highest reach of my platform. So it's going to be a pretty tall enclosure. I'm going to have to redo the DeWalt wall over here, but I'm looking forward to it because that's going to give me a lot bigger workspace, and I'll be able to put this guy to work and maybe even get myself the 35 watt model and try it out. What I'm hoping is that if I do get the 35 watt machine, that maybe the 20 watt laser head will be as simple as unplug and plug on the 35 watt power supply, and I'll be able to downsize to a 20 watt if I'm trying to do really detailed stuff. But we'll see. If not, I've still got a little bit of room, so we'll go from there. All right, guys, just wanted to update you and let you know, like I said, not trash talking the X-Tool. It has served me well. My 20 watt is still serving me well and will continue to do so, but it will assume the secondary role as far as you know, who gets the most attention, as far as who gets the most use, because this guy is going to open up a lot of new engraving capabilities and possibilities for me. Between it, the crawler, and the CO2, I'm going to have a lot more options on the table when it comes to some of my designs and having to limit the size of the burns. The added power of the 24 watt is going to also increase my ability to cut thicker materials. And with that added, you know, length of 30-something inches, that's going to make for some pretty interesting projects. So, all right, guys, if you hadn't already, hit the bell and subscribe. And when I get these other projects started, the new enclosure, that'll give you a nice little pop-up to remind you to check the video out. And once I get the video completed, I get the project done, the enclosure is done and tested, I will probably be releasing the design just like I did with the other enclosures. But for now, it's a work in progress, and I'm not always sure how it's going to go together. It's going to be very dynamic during the build, so stay tuned. All right, guys, that's it for tonight. All the stove covers have kind of wore me down for the day, so I'm going to go on in the house, But until next time, as always, be safe and have a good day.